Nice, France, 1942. In a rented villa overlooking the Mediterranean, a man works in total secrecy. No models, no assistants, no visitors. Hans Vermeer is painting a masterpiece, Christ and the Adulteress, in the style of Johannes Vermeer, one of the most revered painters in history. The painting is worth millions. It will end up in Hermann Göring's personal collection, Hitler's second-in-command, the man who looted Europe's greatest art treasures. And 3 years later, this painting will nearly get Vermeer executed for treason. But it's not a Vermeer. It never was. And that's exactly what Vermeer is counting on. October 29, 1947, room 4 of the Regional Court in Amsterdam. Hans Vermeer stands trial. The charge, collaboration with the enemy. The evidence, he sold a priceless Dutch national treasure to Hermann Göring. A painting by Johannes Vermeer, one of Holland's greatest cultural assets, was handed directly to the Nazis. The penalty for this crime is death. Vermeer listens to the charges, and then he says something that stops the entire courtroom. The painting isn't a Vermeer. The prosecutor looks up. I painted it myself, he says. Silence. The art experts in the room shake their heads. The prosecutor smirks. This is obviously a desperate lie from a desperate man. But Vermeer doesn't flinch. I can prove it, he says. Give me a canvas, give me paint. I'll paint you another Vermeer right here. To understand how we got here, we need to go back, because this isn't really a story about forgery. It's a story about insecurity, about revenge, about a man who needed to be seen. And when the art world wouldn't look at him, he made them look at someone else instead. The question isn't whether Vermeer fooled the experts. He did. The question is, why did he need him? Deventer, the Netherlands. Henricus Antonius van Meegeren is born into a strict Catholic family. His father has plans for him. He will be an architect, a respectable profession with a stable income. But Han doesn't want to be an architect. He wants to be a painter. At the Delft Institute of Technology, where he's supposed to be learning to design buildings, he spends all his time in the art department. He's talented, really talented. He wins a gold medal for a drawing of a church, done in the famous Dutch 17th century style. The subject is genuine, but the style was copied. He becomes a teaching assistant in art history. He gets married, has 2 kids, and in 1917, he holds his first solo exhibition in The Hague. This is the moment, his chance to be recognized, to be seen as a serious artist. But the critics destroy him. They call his work derivative, old-fashioned, sentimental. They say he's technically skilled, but he's not original. He's painting like it's still the 17th century. And one critic, in particular, tears him apart. His name doesn't matter just yet, but Vermeer will remember him. After the reviews, something breaks in Vermeer. He starts drinking heavily, his marriage falls apart, and in 1923, he divorces his wife. But he keeps painting, and his works keep getting dismissed. In 1927, he has one moment of validation. The Deer, one of his paintings, becomes the most valued work at an art lottery in The Hague. The public loves it, but the critics still don't. That same year, he marries again, an actress named Jo Oelemans. She used to be married to an art critic, a man named C.H. de Boer. Now, we don't know for sure if this critic was one of the guys who dismissed Vermeer's work. But if so, marrying his ex-wife, now, that's a move. Vermeer starts writing for an art magazine, De Kempan. It's dedicated to opposing progressive art movements, all the modern stuff the critics love. Vermeer designs the cover and writes articles attacking contemporary art. The magazine folds after 2 years. By 1932, Meegeren moves to the south of France. He lives in a villa overlooking the Mediterranean. And there, in isolation, he makes a decision. If the art world won't recognize his genius, he'll prove it another way. He'll paint something so perfect, so masterful, that the greatest art experts in the world will authenticate it as a work done by one of history's masters. And when they do, when they stake their reputations on it, he'll reveal the truth. He'll expose them as frauds. But there's one expert in particular he wants to make a fool of. Dr. Abraham Bradius. At 83 years old, Bradius is the most powerful voice in the art world. He's dedicated his entire life to the study of Johannes Vermeer, the Dutch master who painted Girl with a Pearl Earring, who created luminous domestic scenes with light that seems to glow from within. Bradius is called the Pope because his word is gospel. If Bradius says a painting is authentic, it's authentic. If he says it's fake, it's worthless. And years earlier, Bradius had looked at one of Vermeeren's early attempts. He pronounced it a fake. Vermeeren never forgot. Now, Bradius has a theory. He believes Vermeer was influenced by Italian art, that somewhere there's a missing link, an early Vermeer that shows his Italian influence. A religious painting, perhaps, not a typical Vermeer topic. No one has ever found this painting, so Vermeeren decides that he will. Vermeeren spends 4 years working out the technique. The biggest problem with forging old masters isn't the painting itself, it's making it look old. Oil paint takes about 50 years to fully harden. If you paint something today and they run a test tomorrow, they'll know it's a fake. But in those 4 years, Vermeeren solves this problem. Instead of mixing his pigment with linseed oil, he uses bakelite, a synthetic resin. Then he bakes the canvas in an oven at low temperature. This hardens the paint completely, makes it as hard as a painting from the Golden Age. But that's just the beginning. He sourced actual paintings from the 1600s, cheap, poorly done, and worthless. He carefully removes the paint with pumice and water. But he's extremely careful not to remove the network of age cracks. Those cracks are crucial. They are the signature of time. He grinds his own pigments, uses oil colors that would have only been available in Vermeer's time. He paints with badger hair brushes and uses period-authentic techniques. He studies Vermeer obsessively, the way he composes scenes, the way light fell across the fabric. His signature pointilles, those tiny dots of light that Vermeer used. And then Vermeeren had a stroke of genius. Instead of forging one of Vermeer's typical interior scenes, paintings that could be compared directly to works hanging in museums, he'll forge the painting that doesn't exist yet. The missing link Bradius has been searching for. Early Vermeer, religious subject matter with Italian influences on a large scale. Everything Bradius believes must exist. Vermeeren will paint Bradius' fantasy. He paints Christ and the disciples at Emmaus. Vermeeren works in complete secrecy. He has to. He can't risk any blabbermouth revealing his snide plans. For the disciples' faces, he uses his imagination. For Christ, he relies on study after study. For one of the apostles, St. John, he directly steals from Vermeer. He copies the head of Girl with a Pearl Earring. A little joke for himself, of course, but also often done by Rembrandt and Vermeer as a way to save time and money. The composition is ambitious. 13 figures in various poses, a biblical scene painted with Vermeer's technique but Caravaggio's drama. Exactly what the Italian influence theory would predict. When he's done, he adds the final touches. Indian ink mixed with black paint, creating artificial dirt in the cracks. He rolls the canvas to create stress patterns of age. Then he contacts a lawyer in Amsterdam. The lawyer approaches Bradius with the story. He represents a Dutch family. They have an old painting they inherited and they would like it authenticated. Would Dr. Bradius be willing to look at it? Bradius sees the painting, and he weeps. At 83 years old, this is vindication. Everything he believed about Vermeer is confirmed by this newly discovered masterpiece. He writes an article for Burlington Magazine, the art Bible of the era.
It is a wonderful moment in the life of a lover of art when he finds himself suddenly confronted with a hitherto unknown painting by a great master, untouched on the original canvas and without any restoration, just as it left the painter's studio. And what a picture! Neither the beautiful signature nor the pointillays on the bread which Christ is blessing are necessary to convince us that we have here, I am inclined to say, the masterpiece of Johannes Vermeer of Delft.
The most powerful art expert had authenticated Vermeer's forgery. The painting sells to the Museum Boijmans in Rotterdam for 520,000 guilders. That's roughly 4 million in today's money. Now, Vermeer's plan was to reveal the forgery immediately, to crush Bradius, to expose the entire art establishment as frauds who couldn't tell a real Vermeer from a fake. His sweet revenge. But then the money arrives, and vindication doesn't seem that important anymore. The money itself is revenge, so why stop at one? Once you fool them once, it gets easier. Vermeer paints The Last Supper. It sells for 1.6 million guilders, about 7 million today. The Washing of the Feet, 1.3 million guilders. The Blessing of Jacob, 1.27 million guilders. He also paints forgeries in the style of Pieter de Hoog, another Dutch master, and those sell too. Between 1937 and 1943, Vermeer makes over 7 million guilders. That's roughly 30 million in today's money. He buys multiple houses in Amsterdam, and he lives the high life. He drinks expensive whiskey and throws lavish parties. But he's still not happy. He can't tell anyone why he's rich. He can't tell anyone he's a genius who fooled the greatest experts in the world. Every time someone praises his Vermeer, he has to stay silent. Every time his forgeries are written about in scholarly journals, he has to pretend he doesn't notice. He wanted validation. Instead, he got money and anonymity. The drinking gets worse. Then a man approached Vermeer with an unusual request. He's connected to the Nazis. He's looking for a Vermeer for someone very important. Hermann Göring. Now, Göring isn't just any collector. He's the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany. He's looted art treasures from across occupied Europe. His collection is one of the finest and most stolen in the world. And he wants a Vermeer. Vermeer sees an opportunity. Not just for money, but for something better. He paints Christ and the Adulteress, another religious Vermeer that proves the Italian theory. But this time, the deal's a bit different. He trades 200 authentic Dutch paintings, works the Nazis looted at the beginning of the war. Vermeer gets almost 2 million guilders worth of paintings, real ones. Dutch cultural treasures returned to Holland. In exchange, Göring gets a fake. Vermeer must have loved this, the ultimate con. He's not just fooling an expert, he's fooling Hermann Göring. He swindled a Nazi, and in the process, he retrieved Dutch stolen art. This is perfect. Or so it seems. It's May 1945. The war is over. The Allies are going through Göring's collection, catalog everything. Captain Harry Anderson finds Christ and the Adulteress. It's undocumented. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows how Göring got his hands on it. The Allies start investigating and trace the sale. They contact dealers and lawyers, and the trail leads to Meegeren. On May 29, 1945, armed men arrive at his house. They arrest him. The charge? Collaboration with the enemy. Selling a national treasure to the Nazis is treason. Penalty is death. Vermeer sits in a cell for 2 weeks. He knows he's facing execution. The evidence is clear. He sold a Vermeer to Göring. But he also knows the truth. On June 12th, he tells his interrogators, "I didn't sell Göring a Vermeer. I painted it myself." But they don't believe him. "I painted 6 Vermeers and 2 Peter the Hoax," he said. "The one Göring bought, that was mine. The Emmaus in the Museum Boijmans, also mine." The interrogators think he's lying, insane, or maybe both. The greatest experts in the world authenticated these paintings. Dr. Bredius himself wrote about the Emmaus. Museums paid millions, and Vermeer, this drunk, mediocre artist, claims he fooled them all. Impossible. But Vermeer stays calm. "X-ray them," he says. "You'll find another painting underneath. I painted over authentic paintings from the Golden Age. Test the paint, test the canvas, test it all. Or better yet, let me paint you another one." The Dutch government rents a house, sets up Vermeer with a studio under the watch of 6 witnesses. He's given canvas, paints, and brushes, and has access to his one vice, whiskey. Then he starts painting. Jesus among the doctors, another religious Vermeer, another missing link. The witnesses watch him work for weeks. They see technique, the methods, and careful aging processes. And they begin to believe. October 29th, 1947, the trial begins. But the charges have changed. Now it's not collaboration, but it's forgery. The art world is in shock. Museum Boijmans' crown jewel is a fake. The painting Bredius called Vermeer's masterpiece a forgery. All those scholarly articles, all based on lies. The experts who authenticated the paintings are humiliated. Their reputations are destroyed. Their ability to detect real from fake, is exposed as worthless. Vermeer testifies. He explains everything: the bakelite technique, the authentic canvases, the grinding of the pigments, the years of study. And he explains why. "I was spurred by disappointment," he tells the court, "by receiving no acknowledgement from artists and critics. I determined to prove my worth as a painter by making a perfect 17th century canvas." He wanted to be seen, and the only way to be seen was to disappear and become Vermeer. The jury finds him guilty. He gets 1 year in prison. "I looked up our laws 12 years ago," he tells a reporter, "before I started all this. 2 years is a maximum punishment for forgery. But sir," he says, "I'm sure about one thing. If I die in jail, they'll just forget all about it. My paintings will become original Vermeers once more." He has a right to be concerned about dying in jail. December 30th, 1947, 6 weeks after his conviction, Hans Vermeer dies of a heart attack, 58 years old. Years of alcohol and drug abuse finally caught up with him. He never goes to prison, but he dies famous, not as an original artist, but as a man who fooled the art world, the man who swindled Hermann Göring, the man who proved that expertise is just educated guessing. He dies a folk hero. So we know what he did, but here's the deeper question. Why? Vermeer claimed it was about revenge, about exposing the critics who dismissed his original work, about proving that the art establishment was built on pretension and guesswork. But if that was true, why didn't he reveal the forgery after Emmaus sold? He had everything he needed. The most respected expert in the world had authenticated it. It was hanging in a museum. The stars aligned for his big reveal. Instead, he kept painting, kept selling, kept collecting millions. So the revenge story doesn't add up. I think the truth might be simpler and sadder. Vermeer wasn't trying to expose the critics. He was trying to become someone else, someone the critics would respect. He couldn't get validation as Hans Vermeer, but as Vermeer, everybody loved him. Every time a museum bought one of his paintings, it was kind of a validation. Not for him exactly, but close enough. Until it wasn't. Think about what Vermeer created. He didn't just forge paintings. He forged an entire narrative. He created the missing link that experts had theorized must exist. He gave Bradius exactly what Bradius wanted to find. That's confirmation bias. He didn't copy Vermeer. He created what Vermeer should have painted, according to the experts. That's genius, but it's also deeply insecure. He's not saying, here's what I think Vermeer could have been. He's saying, here's what you already believe. He's giving the experts permission to be right, and they take it, hook, line, and sinker. Because here's the secret about art authentication. It's not science, it's based on expertise, yin-yang, Fingerspitzengefühl. When Bradius looked at the supper at Emmaus, he didn't see what was actually there. He saw what he wanted to see, what he expected to see, what his theory predicted should exist. And once Bradius authenticated it, everyone else fell in line. Not because they independently verified it, but because questioning Bradius was career suicide. And Vermeer knew this. He understood that art authentication isn't about objective truth. It's about authority, about reputation, about who gets to decide what's real. When Göring was told after the war that his Vermeer was a forgery, witnesses said he looked like he just discovered there was evil in the world. The irony is almost too perfect. Göring, who destroyed lives, looted nations, participated in genocide, is devastated to discover he was lied to about a painting. And the man who lied to him becomes a folk hero because Vermeer didn't just forge a painting. He fooled a Nazi. That's the story that resonated in post-war Holland. Not talented artist fakes revenge on critics, but clever Dutchman swindles Göring. Vermeer became famous for the one forgery he never intended to be his triumph, the one that nearly killed him. Here's the tragedy of Vermeer. He got everything he wanted, and none of it satisfied him. He wanted to be recognized as a genius. He was, but as Vermeer, not as himself. He wanted to expose the critics as frauds. He did, but only by confessing to being a fraud himself. He wanted to humiliate Bradius, and he did, but only after Bradius had already died. Bradius passed away in 1946, before Vermeer's trial. He never knew the Emmaus, the painting he called Vermeer's masterpiece, was a fake. And when Vermeer finally revealed the truth, when he finally got recognition for being a forger, not for being an artist, he spent his entire life trying to prove he was as good as the old masters. And in the end, he did. He painted works that fooled the greatest experts in the world, but to prove it, he had to erase himself. Vermeer's case made the art world reckon with some unwanted questions. What makes a painting valuable? Is it the skill of the artist? If so, Vermeer's paintings should still be valuable. Is it age? Probably not. How would you explain Picasso or Dali? Is it the signature? The forgeries have perfect Vermeer signatures. Or is it the name? Is the only thing that matters who painted it? Before the forgery was revealed, the supper at Emmaus was worth millions. After, it wasn't worth the canvas it was painted on. The painting didn't change. The paint, the canvas, the composition, all exactly the same. The only thing that changed was the name attached to it. And that reveals something about the art market. It's not about the art, it's about the story, about provenance, about authority, about who gets to decide what has value. Vermeer exposed that, not by writing essays or giving lectures, but by making the art world look foolish. After Vermeer's confession, the art world went through a crisis. Scholars re-examined every Vermeer, every attribution, every authentication. The first edition of the Friese Vermeer catalog, published in 1939, listed 43 works. The second edition, published in 1948, after Vermeer, listed only 35. 8 paintings removed. Some were probably Vermeer's. Others were just paintings scholars no longer felt confident were Vermeer's. The Van Meegeren case destroyed faith in the Bradiuses of the world. The idea that an expert could just look at a painting and know it was authentic was no longer accepted. From then on, art required lab analysis, x-rays, chemical testing, provenance research, documentation. The expert's eye was no longer enough. And that's probably Vermeer's greatest legacy. Not his paintings, not his technique, not even fooling Göring. He changed how we authenticate art. He forced the art world to admit that intuition and authority aren't the same as truth. What are we actually looking for when we look at art? Are we seeing the painting, or are we seeing the story behind the painting? Vermeer bet everything on the answer being the story, and he was right. Take Van Gogh. I've heard people say, my child can do that. I get it. But if you hear the backstory, poor, crazy guy who cut off his own ear, got locked up in an asylum a few times, only sold one painting in his lifetime, then the painting becomes more interesting. Not just the painting, but also the owner of the painting gains status. The people who bought Vermeer's forgeries weren't buying them for beauty, they were buying them for the exact same reason Vermeer painted them. Insecurity. Think about it, when D.G. von Beuningen paid 1.6 million guilders for The Last Supper, what was he actually buying? Not paint on canvas, not beauty, not transcendence. He was buying status, the ability to say, I own a Vermeer. The ability to have other wealthy people come to his home and look at his walls with envy. He was buying validation, the exact same thing Vermeer was desperate for. Göring had looted more art than he could count, but he wanted a Vermeer. Why? Because Vermeer only made about 35 paintings. Owning one meant you were among the elite few. It wasn't about the painting, it was about what the painting meant, what it said about him, that he had taste, power, discernment. Göring didn't care about the brushwork or the composition, he cared about the signature at the bottom. And when he found out that that signature was fake, when he discovered he'd been swindled, his world collapses. So here's what's fascinating about the Vermeer case. So everybody involved was suffering from the same insecurity. Vermeer needed the art world to see him, recognize his genius, to validate his worth. The buyers needed the same thing, recognition of their taste, validation of their status. Bradius needed his theories validated. The museums needed their collection validated. The critics needed their expertise validated. Everyone needed external proof that they mattered. And the painting, the actual physical object, that was just a vehicle for that need. Hans van Meegeren died famous, not as an original artist, but as the greatest art forger of the 20th century. The man who fooled the experts, the man who swindled Göring, the man who exposed the art world as built on authority rather than truth. But I wonder if that's what he actually wanted. All those years of work, all that technical brilliance, all those millions. And in the end, the only way people remember him is as the guy who was really good at being someone else. Not as Hans van Meegeren artist, but as Hans van Meegeren forger. Maybe that was enough for him. Or maybe, right up until the end, he was still waiting for someone to see him. Not as Vermeer, not as a forger. Just as Han. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Henry, and this was What Now?